This page is the front cover of the magazine, featuring The Simpsons Road Rage, with Bart, Homer and Krusty on the cover, and the tagline, "Burn with Bart and Cruise with Krusty. Springfield stars are coming to Cube." There's also a mention of Smash Bros. Melee as the first play of Nintendo's Super Smash GameCube sequel. Additional content includes news and previews, tips, N64 game tests, and Pokémon info. Finally, there is a mention of Broken Sword GBA shots and Resident Evil GameCube shots. The next page is a full-page advert for Samurai Jack on Cartoon Network, promising a new show Fridays at 5:30 p.m. from January 11th. It encourages viewers to visit cartoonnetwork.co.uk/comic/samuraijack for games, competitions, and downloads. This page boasts why Nintendo Magazine is the UK's biggest-selling Nintendo 64 and Nintendo Magazine. It lists 6 promises, including that readers will hear about new Nintendo 64 and Nintendo games first, get the best screenshots, and find easy-to-understand tips and moves. There's also a confidence boost, assuring readers they can trust the writers. The page features photos of the Team Nintendo crew: Tim, Barry, Rich, Mark, Nicola, Dave, Sean, and Tamsin. The cover of this month's magazine is The Simpsons Road Rage on GameCube, and also mentions Smash Bros. Melee, Broken Sword, and Resident Evil. Finally, it provides contact information via post and email, and a note reminding readers to send emails to the correct person, as the masters are no longer providing tips. It also has a number to call if you can't find the mag in the shops. This page is the content section. It highlights previews of Simpsons Road Rage on page 6, promising a first look at the Crazy Cabby game coming to GameCube. There's also a mention of Super Smash Bros. Melee on page 16. Finally, Game News teases new games including Army Men Operation Green, Broken Sword, Cell Damage, Dark Summit, Logic 3 GBC Offer, Mobile Monitor, Mortal Kombat Advance, Rogue Spear, Smashing Drive, Soul Calibur 2, Star Fox Adventures Dinosaur Planet, Tarzan Untamed, Flintstones, ZOE, and Resident Evil on page 82. The next page serves up a healthy dose of Game Boy Advance goodness. We've got reviews of Sean Palmer's Pro Snowboarder, and then some Blagfest prizes including Game Boy Advances, Monsters, Ink Toys, and Robot Wars goodies. The Game Guides section features Wario Land 4 with a complete walkthrough. There's also mentions of ESPN International Winter Sports, Pac-Man Collection, Dave Mirra Freestyle BMX2, plus 14 pages of GBA reviews including Thunderbirds, Creatures, and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 on Game Boy Color. Finally, WWF Heroes is spotlighting Booker T. This page showcases Simpsons Road Rage for the Nintendo GameCube. Looks like motoring Armageddon is about to break loose as the residents of Springfield rally to thwart Mr. Burns' dastardly schemes. The next page presents a preview of Simpsons Road Rage, highlighting the game's madcap tour of Springfield on Nintendo's new Super Console. The reviewer states that The Simpsons are more famous than the British royal family, and are hilarious. Screenshots depict gameplay with insane vehicles, and a finger points to a map advising players not to go far wrong following it. This page continues the preview of Simpsons Road Rage, a madcap tour of Springfield. The game is presented just like an episode of The Simpsons TV show. Montgomery Burns has converted the buses to run on nuclear power, turning them into fast-moving death traps and hiking up the fares. There are 25 playable characters to choose from, each with their own vehicle. Some of the favorites include Homer Simpson in his pink car, Marge Simpson, Krusty the Clown in a comedy car, Barney behind the wheel of his Plow King, and Professor Frink driving a hover car. The voices for the game are provided by Dan Castellaneta, who does Homer, Krusty, Mayor Quimby, Itchy, Groundskeeper Willie, Sideshow Mel, and others. The next page provides more details on Simpsons Road Rage, highlighting the main objective: to make $1 million by ferrying passengers around Springfield. The blurb suggests using shortcuts and smashing anything in your way to reach your destination faster. It highlights the different types of fares you might encounter. The page also shows screenshots, one featuring a road rage trip, where destruction is key, and another depicting a safe trip, where you must avoid hitting anything. This page delves deeper into Simpsons Road Rage, offering tips and insights into the gameplay. It highlights the importance of spending money to unlock hidden characters and new areas, making the game more enjoyable. The main objective is explained, focusing on delivering passengers to their destinations while following the guiding hand. There's also a mention of picking up passengers from strange locations, even inside the stadium, adding to the game's humor. The reviewer loves it, suggesting that if you're a fan of The Simpsons, you'll adore Road Rage. Screenshots showcase gameplay within the stadium, complete with jumbo-vision and familiar Springfield locations. The next page is all about Simpsons Road Rage, big game. It's giving us a heads up on how to navigate Springfield, suggesting we keep an eye on the floating hand and the map to find shortcuts. They highlight some of Homer's classic one-liners, like, strained peas, and, 64 slices of American cheese. There are screenshots showing different areas of the game, like Krusty's destination bathed in green light, and the Springfield Dam, where Marge is looking a bit disturbed. They also mention the fact that your car is indestructible, so you can pull off some crazy stunts. Plus, it's reassuring to know that you don't need to worry about the highway code too much. This page continues with Simpsons Road Rage, and the focus is on shortcuts, advising players to look everywhere to shave vital seconds off their time and make more money. It points out that sneaky routes are even more important in two-player mode. Screenshots show how you can drive into walls to reveal new routes and make blind leaps of faith off buildings. The magazine jokingly says they wouldn't stay in a taxi taking shortcuts like this, as jumping over ravines is plain crazy. The arcade-style section explains the game is easy to pick up and play, using only 3 buttons and the 3D stick. It details what the A, B and X buttons do. A is the accelerator, B is the brake for cool donuts, and X makes your vehicle jump to avoid traffic jams. The next page is all about the humor in Simpsons Road Rage, stating it wouldn't be The Simpsons without its trademark humor and bucket loads of laughs which this GameCube title has. The cube handles sound better, so the makers of the game have crammed in tons of speech samples supplied by the actual cast of the television show. Playing the game is like taking part in an episode of The Simpsons cartoon. There's a section on funny signs, saying The Simpsons TV series rewards keen eyes with loads of funny signs to spot in the background. Springfield Dog Track, think of them as little horses, and Stepping Out Fashion Mart, browse through our bra barrel are mentioned. The favorite, however, was a sign spotted outside the nuclear power plant which reads, "Still operating, thanks to the lengthy appeals process." The Sunday Driver section states, there's no doubt that Simpsons Road Rage is a fast-paced, non-stop, rollercoaster ride of a game. Because of this, it's easy to get caught up in the job in hand and miss the 100 or so Simpsons landmarks dotted around Springfield. The game contains a Sunday Drive mode where you can take a leisurely ride around the famed town and see all the sights. The next page dives into the two-player mode of Simpsons Road Rage, highlighting the split-screen action. It mentions 2 multiplayer options, one being a race to the next customer, where players are dropped in different parts of Springfield, and another, where players try to steal each other's fares. The page includes screenshots of gameplay around Springfield landmarks such as Springfield Mall and the Leftorium, with Marge and Homer battling it out. It assures fans that the game recreates the look and feel of Springfield, with recognizable landmarks. There's also a reminder of Troy McClure, the perpetual star of low-budget movies, with a list of his film credits including titles like P is for Psycho and Hydro the Man with the Hydraulic Arms, and finally a screenshot of Bart playing video games. It ends by praising the game's creators for recreating Springfield and its characters, making it feel like an episode of the TV show. This page is a full-page advert for Titus Interactive Games on Game Boy Advance, urging you to stuff 'em into your GBA. It features game boxes for Cow the Kangaroo, Prehistoric Man, and Planet Monsters, with scores from Nintendo Official Magazine. The bottom of the page displays in-game screenshots, and the logos for Virgin Interactive and Titus Games. The next page is a full-page advert for Super Smash Bros. Melee on the GameCube, proclaiming it a big game, with an all-star cast, classic worlds and frantic fighting fun. It features the game's logo in big blue text, and a line of text saying, Planet Nintendo's all-star lineup is coming to GameCube, and if you thought the original was a classic, nothing will prepare you for what's just around the corner. Below this is a huge group shot of the game's characters, including Yoshi, Fox McCloud, Donkey Kong, the Ice Climbers, Captain Falcon, Mario, Siphoness, Kirby and Bowser. It includes a game info box, crediting Nintendo as the developer, listing the type as beat 'em up, and saying that the release date is TBC. This page continues with a focus on Super Smash Bros. Melee and its graphical prowess. The text raves about the game's visuals, calling it a high-speed trip through various Nintendo worlds, and singling out the F-Zero race and the hundreds of different colored Yoshis as highlights. The page also showcases screenshots highlighting specific moments from the game's opening movie. These include Mario appearing in a blaze of light, Bowser surrounded by flames, a gaggle of Yoshis, a group of Pokémon, F-Zero racers battling it out, and Link and Zelda ready for action. All this intended to make you drool apparently. This page is all about Super Smash Bros. Melee. It starts with a rundown of the grappling options, basically the game modes. You've got your standard 1P mode, VS mode for up to 4 players, and a trophy section explaining how to earn coins and view your collection in the gallery. There's also a section about using a GameCube memory card to save your Melee data, noting that the console's clock will track when you unlocked characters. Then there's How to Win, which details how the percentage meter works, and how to knock opponents out of the arena. It also has tips like if you fall out of the arena and you can't get back, you lose a life. Simple. Finally, Nintendo Lands highlights the various Nintendo-themed stages you'll be fighting on, from Termina to Congo Jungle, Brinstar and F-Zero's Mute City, with a quick mention of the Great Fox stage, and Mario and Pika duking it out on Princess Peach's castle. The next page dives into the nitty-gritty of Super Smash Bros. Melee. On the buttons gives you the lowdown on the GameCube controller layout, explaining how to shield, pause, move, and perform basic and special attacks. Then it's Fall from the Sky, which covers the various weapons that drop into the arena. They highlight the fan, Pokeball, Home Run Bat, Ray Gun, Maxim Tomato and Party Ball, all the essentials for causing absolute mayhem. It's a proper arsenal of Nintendo-themed destruction. This page showcases the gaming legends of Super Smash Bros. Melee, declaring the lineup of characters as every Nintendo fan's dream. It boasts 14 fighters available from the start, each with 4 attacks, and mentions 11 unlockable characters like Luigi, Dr. Mario, Ganondorf, Falco, and Jigglypuff. The page features screenshots of Mario battling Fox, and action shots of Yoshi, Donkey Kong, Mario, Princess Peach, and Captain Falcon, each accompanied by their first starring role and a sample of their attacks. For example, Mario's first starring role is Donkey Kong, Arcade, and his attacks are Fireball, Cape, Super Jump Punch, and the fearsome Mario Tornado. This page also highlights that the training screen doesn't even show all the secret characters. The next page delves deeper into some of the Super Smash Bros. Melee's initial lineup. We get introductions to Link, Kirby, Fox McCloud, Ice Climbers, Zelda, Pikachu, Bowser, Dayness, and Samus Aran. For each character, it lists their first starring role and some of their signature attacks. For example, Link's first starring role is the Legend of Zelda, Corsness, and his attacks include Bow, Boomerang, Spin Attack, and Bomb, with a note on how incredibly cool his attacks look. Similarly, in Musical, Warrington S, originating from Earthbound, Lolags, is known for unleashing the PK Flash, PK Fire, PK Thunder, and Psy Magnet attacks. This page is all about Super Smash Bros. Melee. It highlights the bonus stages, including Break the Targets and Race to the Finish. There are screenshots showing off the graphics, with the reviewer even questioning if they're really seeing such good visuals. The page touches on heart-melting moments, noting how Nintendo brought classic moments to life, referencing classic NES, Super NES and 64 arenas, the invincibility music from Super Mario Kart, the Super Scope as a weapon, and the DK rap from Donkey Kong 64. Also featured is the Trophy mode, where you can collect trophies of Nintendo stars. A screenshot shows the Kirby Hat 2 trophy. The reviewer thinks the game is the most playable and best-looking GameCube title seen at Nom Towers, praising the addictive beat-em-up action. The next page dives into the Nintendo Prize Zone, where you can win a Pentium 4%, a GameCube, a PS2, a Nintendo 64, a Game Boy Advance, and a copy of Pokémon Crystal with a Game Boy Color. There's also a Nokia 8310 phone up for grabs, a box of Neo Genesis Pokémon cards, £150 worth of games, a laptop computer, and Harry Potter goodies. Below that is a Nintendo cheats section listing various games with their corresponding cheat code numbers, including WWF No Mercy, Banjo-Kazooie, Mario Kart, Banjo-Tooie, Pokémon Crystal, SmackDown 2, Conker's Bad Fur Day, Pokémon Yellow, SmackDown 3, Pokémon Gold, Pokémon Stadium, and Zelda 2. It also mentions the website where you can find more cheats. This page presents a collection of new game reviews for the Game Boy Advance. It starts with how they score, going from 044, which is real rubbish, to 90,100 for an amazing game you must play. The Game Boy Advance games reviewed include Columns Crown, Creatures, Dave Mirra Freestyle BMX2, ESPN International Winter Sports, Inspector Gadget, Advance Mission, Jackie Chan Adventures, Namco Museum, NBA Jam 2002, and Pac-Man Collection. The page then focuses on Sean Palmer's Pro Snowboarder, complete with game info like the developer, price £34.99, and a release date of Out Now. They said to get polishing that snowboard and prepare to go totally snowblind, playing this GBA Speedfest. There's also a section on tattoos and Cadillacs, describing Sean Palmer. Screenshots highlight the character selection screen and gameplay. It notes that the career mode will be familiar to Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 fans, and that only 2 levels are initially available in career mode. This page features Sean Palmer's Pro Snowboarder review for Game Boy Advance. They've reviewed it, highlighted the gameplay and character selection. The game's career mode is noted to be familiar to Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 players with only 2 levels initially available. This page continues the Sean Palmer's Pro Snowboarder review. The game looks sweeter than ice cream and highlights how to impress sponsors in career mode by completing various snowboarding skills. It also delves into the game's tricky treats, emphasizing the need to master tricks, stunts, and combos. Tips for manuals, jump tricks, board slides, and handplant lip tricks on the superpipe. For the game modes, Palmer X-Course and Freestyle mode are given. The next page features a review of Sean Palmer's Pro Snowboarder for the Game Boy Advance. It's all about smashing things to earn bonus points, which is apparently called bonking in snowboarding speak. The review also touches on secrets hidden in the mountains, encouraging players to explore for unlockable content and extra courses. The reviewer notes the game is tricky and takes a lot of practice to master, but the grungy soundtrack and taunts from other boarders make it a worthwhile experience and one of the best-sounding GBA titles. The game receives a score of 90% and is hailed as awesome. This page is a review of ESPN International Winter Sports for the Game Boy Advance, and it sounds like they think it might be a winner. The reviewer notes, the game gives you a taste of icy runs and ski mountain gameplay. The game includes button-bashing sequences and more skill-based events, like figure skating and biathlon, with a 4-player competitive mode via GameLink cables. The Modes to Measure section touches on Trial Mode, Championship, and Excite Mode. There's a Need for Speed section that talks about button mashing for speed skating and other disciplines requiring more coordination, which might make your arms ache and thumbs bleed. The reviewer suggests the game has plenty of snow, and the animation is pretty good but not the best they've seen on the GBA. This page features more details on ESPN International Winter Sports, focusing on minigame events. Quick Thinking highlights the coordination needed in events like freestyle skiing and biathlon, warning about penalties for missed shots. Jump to the Beat praises figure skating, comparing it to rhythm games like Parappa the Rapper. If you mess up the button presses, your skater will end up on their backside, so beware. Gloat to Your Mates mentions the ability to save scores on the Game Boy Advance cartridge. The reviewer states that in Championship mode you can record your scores and save them onto the Game Boy Advance cartridge. The mountain looks flat, but don't be fooled, it's steep. Pages. The page concludes by mentioning a multiplayer mode for up to 4 players, and giving the game a solid 90% rating with a Nintendo official magazine Awesome tag. The next page is a review of the Pac-Man collection for the Game Boy Advance. It features 4 games in one: the original Pac-Man, Pac-Attack, Pac-Mania, and Pac-Man Arrangement. The reviewer says it's a nostalgia trip for mature gamers, and highlights the faithfulness of the graphics to the originals. Pac-Man Arrangement is a standout, offering new 3D levels, power-ups, and crazy ghosts not seen in the arcade releases. The reviewer notes the attention to detail and colorful visuals in this version. There's a section on power-ups, specifically Fruit, Power Pills, Warp Gates, and Pac-Dash. The review explains how these power-ups work, and how they can help you on your quest to munch those dots. This page continues the review of Pac-Man collection on the Game Boy Advance. The review starts with the classic corner, waxing lyrical about the original Pac-Man and its simple yet addictive gameplay. Moving on to Jump Jetpack Pac-Mania, it's praised as visually stunning with its 3D environments and Pac-Man's new jumping ability. They joke about Pac-Man being a yeller fella who can now outsmart ghosts with his mad hops. Puzzle Pac-Attack gets a look in, described as a colorful puzzle game where you have to eliminate specters and stack bricks. There's a brief mention of the game's sounds, evoking memories of stuffing coins into arcade machines. A fun fact mentions that Pac-Man's design was based on a pizza with a slice missing. The review concludes by stating there are 4 games with an enormous number of levels, and gives the game a final score of 85%, while the puzzle title being a bit rubbish. Newsletter. The next page features a review for Dave Mirra Freestyle BMX2 on the Game Boy Advance, kicking off with the tagline, BMX Bandits. The reviewer says the game has loads of levels and signature moves to uncover, and they believe Dave Mirra is one of the biggest names on the pro BMX circuit. The review also mentions that the tricks are tough, and some of the stunts are terrifying, but it is shaping up to be one of the best extreme sports games on the GBA. There's a section called Get Stuck In, which details the game's modes: ProQuest, Session, Freeride, and 2-player. ProQuest involves completing objectives to unlock levels. Session lets you hone your bike skills on levels you enjoy. Freeride is for getting to grips with the game's controls. And 2-player involves passing your Game Boy Advance to another player. The reviewer states that if you've played Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 on the GBA, this game will look familiar. They also praised the lush levels and the details in the game, such as the garish graffiti. This page is a continuation of the Dave Mirra Freestyle BMX2 review for the Game Boy Advance. It highlights the game's level best, showcasing its diverse biking environments, including vert, dirt, and park disciplines. The Rush Hour section details the signature moves and how to fill up your rush meter. Side-on Action compares the game's isometric camera angle to Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, noting the visual appeal but also the tricky distance estimation and collision detection. The review touches on specific levels like Vert Cloud 9, Streetcar Park, and Park Local Park. The review concludes that the game has a steep learning curve and over 800 tricks to uncover. The final verdict gives the game an 82%, praising its similarity to Pro Skater 2, but criticizing the loose controls and collision detection. The next page features a review of Inspector Gadget, Advance Mission for the Game Boy Advance. The review kicks off with Go Go GBA, and promises slapstick fun reminiscent of the cartoon show. Inspector Gadget, Penny and Brains are on a mission to stop Drive Claw from hypnotizing the world through his machines planted at famous landmarks. The review praises the in-game character animation and colorful levels. The gameplay involves switching between characters to solve puzzles. Gadget uses gizmos, Penny controls robots and swims well, and Brains can creep around in a penguin disguise and jump high. The review highlights that the game plays similarly to Super Mario Advance. This page continues the Inspector Gadget, Advance Mission review. It highlights the globe-trotting nature of the game, taking you to New York, the Eiffel Tower, London, the Great Wall of China, and Egypt. The reviewer notes the stunning views from the Eiffel Tower levels, and the wet dog smell in the rainy London stages. The review then delves into Gadget's gizmos, like his mallet, springy legs, and umbrella. The reviewer points out that Dr. Claw has dispatched plenty of goons, so be ready to defend yourself. The sound quality is described as grainy and repetitive, not quite up to the usual Game Boy Advance standards. The game length is deemed appropriate for younger gamers, though experienced players might find it a bit easy once they've mastered each character's abilities. Overall, the game scores an 85% and is recommended as a good alternative if you're tired of Mario. The reviewer claims it mixes strategy and platforming fun, even beating Rugrats. This page is a review of Columns Crown for the Game Boy Advance. The reviewer remarks that while it might seem familiar, they are confident it will become a favorite puzzle game on the GBA. Princess Dazzle needs to find missing gems to become queen, tasking players to complete the Columns Crown by finding 24 gems through various battles. The game itself is presented well with cute characters. There are 3 single-player modes: Survival, Versus Accols, and Flash Columns, each offering a different challenge. Survival focuses on clearing the screen, Versus involves battling thieves in the forest, and Flash Columns is a more traditional puzzle game. The reviewer mentions some nice effects but notes the game lacks the addictive edge of classic puzzlers. The graphics are described as cute and colorful, but it's difficult to distinguish between some of the gems. Overall, the characters are a high point. If you like the game, it provides good value for money. The next page features a review of Thunderbird's International Rescue for the Game Boy Advance. You can play with a mate using a Game Link cable, though there are limitations. The reviewer states, Thunderbirds a go, and hopes the game does justice to the classic TV series. The game's plot involves international rescue being framed by the Hood, Missions include underwater exploration and racing with Lady Penelope. The game includes music from the TV series. The visuals are described as solid and pleasing, with screenshots showing Thunderbird vehicles in action. One screenshot shows Lady Penelope getting into the action. The reviewer notes the game can be tough and gives it an 80% score, stating it is a lovingly crafted, authentic adventure that captures the flavor of Thunderbirds. Another reviewer states that the puzzle game Columns Crown takes time to get used to and is difficult to see gems, and the game is too hard, giving this Columns game an 80% too. The next page is a review of Jackie Chan Adventures, Legend of the Dark Hand for the Game Boy Advance. The reviewer thinks the game looks set to be a high-kicking GB Advance classic. The review highlights that Jackie Chan is already a real-life action movie superstar, and now his cartoon alter ego is making the leap to the Game Boy Advance. The game features vibrant cartoon graphics and impressive character animations, with Jackie's floppy hair bouncing as he leaps. The story starts with Jackie helping run his uncle's antique shop, but soon the shop is trashed by Hack Fu, who steals a sacred scroll. Jackie has to get it back. The review mentions Jackie's gang, including Uncle who teaches Jackie Kung Fu scrolls, Jade, Jackie's niece, and Captain Black from Section 13. Although the game is a traditional side-scrolling beat-em-up, it includes various martial arts moves and combinations. Finding sacred scrolls allows Jackie to learn new Kung Fu moves. The reviewer praises the well-timed and atmospheric Oriental music. This page features two Game Boy Advance games, Jackie Chan Adventures, Legend of the Dark Hand, and The Flintstones, Big Trouble in Bedrock. The review of Jackie Chan Adventures, Legend of the Dark Hand concludes, the reviewer believes the colorful cartoon backgrounds look great, and the gameplay is just like a real Jackie Chan action film. The review highlights how the gameplay involves hitting the attack button over and over, occasional moments of platform action, and the chance to interact with scenic props. The review of The Flintstones, Big Trouble in Bedrock, notes that Barney Rubble has been kidnapped by the evil Drive Sinister. You play as Fred Flintstone to rescue him through 12 levels of bedrock, smashing dinosaurs with your club. The reviewer finds some moments enjoyable, like sliding down dino backs and bowling ball attacks, but says the game has a severe lack of originality. The review also includes screenshots of both games and game scores. The Jackie Chan game scores a whopping 87%, while the Flintstones scores a more modest 64%. The next page is all about creatures for the Game Boy Advance. The page says this new pet won't puke behind the sofa or rip up the curtains and, according to the magazine, it's time for Pokémon to move over, because the creatures are coming to need your help in their harsh, dangerous world. The game involves raising cute characters called Norns, and you've got to tend to their every need to keep them happy, and if you are feeling particularly evil you can even create an army of hooligans. The game starts with a male and female Norn, and you have to feed them and tuck them up at night. It also states parental characteristics are passed on, so the baby will be a mix of both personalities, if mum was thick and dad was a nutter. The magazine notes that the Sidian perspective is a welcome change from most strategy games, and says the Norns have a Gremlins meets Pokémon look. Instead of using a cursor, you direct the action with a fairy called Scrubby. You can use Scrubby to pick up items, sprinkle fairy dust, or shower electricity. The page then remarks that Scrubby is more interesting than a dull cursor in strategy games. It finishes by saying the sounds and music are nothing to write home about. The next page features a trio of Game Boy Advance game reviews. First up is Creatures, described as a huge, almost limitless adventure. Players raise creatures called Norns, breed genetic variations, and trade them via GameLink cable, even interacting with the creatures on the GameCube. The reviewer highlights various dangerous worlds to explore. Next, Hot Wheels burning rubber speeds onto the scene. Players take control of over 25 Hot Wheels cars on tracks, set in unusual locations like a piano or dinner table. The tracks include shortcuts, jumps, and loop-the-loops. With 25 cars to choose from, the reviewer believes Hot Wheels fans will enjoy this racer. Finally, An American Tale: Fievel's Gold Rush sees Fievel Mousekewitz embark on a mission to save his buddy Wily Burp. It's a platformer spanning 6 worlds, with Fievel armed with his trusty hat attack. The reviewer considers it a worthy play for Fievel fans. The game scores are 86% for Creatures, 82% for Hot Wheels, and 80% for American Tale. This page showcases Namco Museum for the Game Boy Advance. The reviewer reminisces about shoving fat, 10-pence pieces into arcade machines. 5 classic titles are included: Pole Position, Ms. Pac-Man, Galaxian, Galaga and Dig Dug. The simple aim in each game is to rack up a giant score, but the reviewer points out the GBA cart lacks a save game facility. Despite this oversight, the games look and sound like the originals. Ms. Pac-Man is considered the best of the 5. The reviewer notes that the gameplay in Namco Museum may be locked in a time warp, but there's plenty of variety, with the games being faithful to the originals. This page reviews 3 separate games. The first, Alienators. Evolution continues for the Game Boy Advance, gets a mediocre 70% score, with the reviewer noting it's based on a sci-fi cartoon series, itself inspired by the film Evolution. You play as Era, shooting blue goo. Next up is Frogger's Adventures, Temple of the Frog, also on the GBA, faring slightly better with a 77% score. The reviewer describes it as a simple platformer, but one with an addictive quality. Finally, there's a mini-review of the whole Namco Museum package, awarding it a 72%. The reviewer admits that while the games may look authentic, they haven't aged well, and suggests opting for the Pac-Man collection instead. They conclude there are better racing and blaster titles available. The page also touches on the sounds being authentic but awful compared to modern GBA efforts, and you can change settings to suit your playing style. The next page dives into NBA Jam 2002 for the Game Boy Advance, with a review highlighting the game's fast-paced, frantic action. The reviewer praises the detailed players and clear-court logos. The game boils down to 2-2 matches and lets you pick from 29 teams and over 140 players, with special moves like alley-oops. Apparently the music is cheesy and the commentary annoying, but thankfully you can turn them off. The review notes that the controls are simple. This page features a trio of Game Boy Advance reviews. First up is NBA Jam 2002, where unlocking secret courts involves mastering special moves in horse mode. You get extra players and secret courts to unlock more content. Next is Jurassic Park 2, EI, Dino Attack, which gets a 70% score. The reviewer finds the controls infuriating and the dinosaurs hard to eliminate, though the graphics look good. Lastly, Winter X Games Snowboarding 2 gets an 80% rating. There are only 3 events, which is pretty disappointing: Superpipe, Snowboarder X, and Big Air, but the controls are decent. The next page is a review of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 for the Game Boy Color. Activision brings the Skate King's boarding skills to the handheld. The reviewer ponders if it's a grind too far for the awesome Hawkster. The review highlights that all the cool skate stuff from the series is present. Players can manually link tricks for bigger scores. A balance meter assists with longer grinds, and you can switch stances to skate goofy style for added variety. The game features varied and detailed levels with well-animated skaters. There are 13 skaters to choose from, each with unique talents. Stats can be boosted by completing boarding objectives. The sound is considered as good as it gets on the Game Boy Color. The reviewer says the effects are minimal, and the music is pretty rotten rock. One can pick Tony Hawk or other excellent skaters, like Rodney Mullen. This page features a trio of Game Boy Color game reviews, starting with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, which scores 81%. The reviewer feels it's the first blemish on the Tony Hawk franchise due to rigid movement and awkward controls, suggesting sticking with Tony Hawk's 2 on the Game Boy Advance. Next up is Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, awarded 82%. Disney fans will enjoy this adventure, strictly for younger gamers, with puzzles and variety. Finally, Keep the Balance gets a 67%. The reviewer found the game interesting, challenging quick fingers and mathematical skills, but ultimately dull and repetitive. Bomb use is key, and keeping scales balanced is the challenge. The next page is a full-page advert for GBA Game Boy Advance Master Guide Issue 02. It features a snowboarder holding a Game Boy Advance, screaming down the slopes, wearing trendy sunglasses. The magazine promises over 50 games tested, and offers articles on Mario Kart and Street Fighter 2. It teases High Street Xmas deals and a feature on GBA peripherals. The magazine claims to be the essential winter collection and is made in England. There's also a large Xen printed, possibly for extra large, so maybe it's a big guide. This page is an advert for the Awesome Collection. It claims to be completely tested by experts and says these are all the games you must have. The image features a keyring with the Nintendo official magazine Awesome logo and game boxes. This page features the awesome collection of N64 games, with mini reviews and ratings. Banjo-Kazooie, a platformer/adventure, where you control Banjo and Kazooie. The reviewer praises the controls, bosses, puzzles, and gives it a 96% score. Conker's Bad Fur Day, described as the rudest, lewdest game on the N64, full of toilet humor and film parodies, it gets a 93% score. Banjo-Tooie, more of the same from Banjo and Kazooie, with bigger worlds and better camera angles, rated 97%. Diddy Kong Racing, a cute kart racer that challenges Mario Kart 64, with planes and hovercrafts, gets a 92% score. Donald Duck Quack Attack, a Disney platformer that captures the magic of the cartoon, with a 90% score. Beetle Adventure Racing, a fun racer with beetles, crazy power-ups, and realistic handling, rated 91%. Donkey Kong 64, a massive platformer packed with minigames, it gets a 96% score. The page also has a short paragraph about the official N64 controller, £19.99, and the 64 controller, £17.99, suggesting the official controller is the best. Court and Cherut. This page continues the awesome collection reviews, this time focusing on a new batch of N64 titles and accessories. Duke Nukem 0 Hour, a high-octane adventure where Duke travels through time to stop aliens. The reviewer praises it as a class example of gun fun, giving it a 92% score. Excitebike 64, an arcade-style motorbike racer, praised for its controls and track design, it gets a 93% score, with the multiplayer being a laugh riot. ECW Hardcore Revolution, a hardcore wrestling game with a 90% score, noted for its violence and the convincing wrestlers. FIFA 99, described as one of the best-selling video game brands, praised for its gameplay and multiplayer, it gets a 90% score. F1 Racing Championship, a realistic F1 game with a 90% score, with realistic handling. F1 World Grand Prix 2, praised for its trackside detail and car handling, earning a 90% score. F-Zero X, a futuristic racer with a 92% score, described as amazingly fast. GoldenEye 007, hailed as a complete Nintendo classic and the finest first-person shooter, scoring a 94%. Also featured are some controller reviews. G64 controller, it's cheap, but doesn't play as good as it looks, priced at £14.99. HyperPad Plus, adjustable handles and extra features but the buttons are a bit sticky, priced at £14.99. Trilogy 64, comes with a memory card and rumble pack, priced at £19.99. This page dives into more games from the awesome collection for the N64, starting with ISS 98, a football game praised for its gameplay and multiplayer action, earning a 93% score. Then it's on to International Track and Field, a button-bashing fest with a 94% score. Jet Force Gemini gets a look in, with a 93% score, despite its multiplayer not quite hitting the mark. Lilac Wars, Star Fox 64, gets a solid 90%, with a nod to Fox McCloud's Cool R-Wing. Mario Golf also scores 90%, with its wacky courses and secret content. Mario Kart 64, unsurprisingly, gets a 90% score too, hailed as a multiplayer classic. Mario Party 2 rounds out the game reviews with 91%. Finally, there's a spotlight on Rumble Packs, with the standard Nintendo Rumble Pack and the Joytech Rechargeable Jolt Pack, both priced at £14.99. The Nintendo one is praised for its deep and lively vibrations, while the Joytech offers the convenience of being rechargeable. This page continues with the awesome collection, kicking off with Mario Party 3, priced at £49.99, which earns a 92% score and is praised for its awesome gameplay. Then it's Mario Tennis at £44.99, also with a 92% score, and is said to be quirky and addictive. Mickey Speedway USA, another £44.99 title, scores 92% and is noted for its wicked battle mode. Mortal Kombat 4, cheaper at £39.99, gets a 90% score, with the reviewer saying it's fluid and violent and offers a tough single-player challenge. NFL Quarterback Club 99, another £39.99 title, scores 90% and is hailed as the finest American footy game. Operation Winback at £44.99 gets a 90% score, with the missions being varied and fun. Paper Mario, at £44.99, bags a 93% score, being described as a fantastic cartoon RPG adventure. Perfect Dark, priced at £49.99, scores a cracking 97% and is considered better than GoldenEye 007. Finally, there are a couple of Rumble Pack accessories. The G64 Tremor and Memory Pack at £14.99, which has a built-in memory card, and the Shockwave at £24.99, described as a very good quality Rumble Pack, and then the Jolt Pack, a Blaze product, costs only £6.99 but needs batteries. This page is titled The Awesome Collection and kicks off with what the staff are playing. Rocket Robot on Wheels, a platformer with cool levels, is being enjoyed by one reviewer. 1080 Degrees Snowboarding is being revisited due to rumors of a cancelled GameCube version. Banjo-Tooie, an adventure game with engaging bosses and puzzles, has also grabbed the attention of a reviewer. Pokémon Puzzle League at £39.99 scores 90% and is likened to Tetris Attack, with multiplayer being a highlight. Pokémon Stadium, priced at £49.99 and also scoring 90%, lets players battle their Game Boy critters in 3D. Pokémon Stadium 2, also £49.99 but a higher 91% score, brings all 251 Pokémon to the N64 in 3D. Premier Manager 64, at £39.99 and scoring 90%, is praised for its hardcore management gameplay. Finally, there are memory packs, a 256k Nintendo memory card at £14.99, and an 8 meg Blaze memory card, also £14.99. This selection of N64 games all receive high scores, generally between 90 to 94%. Quake 2, £44.99, is a 12-player frag fest praised for its graphics. Rayman 2, £44.99, and Resident Evil, £2.44.99, both score 91% and 94% respectively, offering strong single-player experiences with impressive visuals and thrills. Ridge Racer 64, £44.99, delivers arcade racing for up to 14 players, though performance dips with higher player counts. Rocket Robot on Wheels, £39.99, is a unique 90% rated platformer, while Shadow Man, £49.99, and both South Park titles, £49.99 and £39.99, also achieve 90% plus scores for compelling gameplay and faithful adaptation of the TV series. Finally, a range of memory packs are available, from £4.99 to £9.99. This page is part of the Awesome Collection and features a selection of N64 games, each with a review. Star Wars Episode 1 Racer, £49.99, a fast-paced pod racing game based on the Phantom Menace with good multiplayer. Star Wars Rogue Squadron, £44.99, an action-packed Star Wars mission game with familiar locations. Super Mario 64, £29.99, a classic 3D platformer, praised for its innovative gameplay and charm, a game everyone knows and loves. Super Smash Bros., £44.99, a beat-em-up with Nintendo characters, noted for its electric speed and interactive arenas. 1080 Degrees Snowboarding, £29.99, a snowboarding game with cool graphics and a great soundtrack. It has a great multiplayer mode. It's a quality title. Tarzan, £39.99, an action platformer, praised for its visuals and level design. Tony Hawk Skateboarding, £39.99, praised for its intuitive controls and multiplayer options. Turok 2, Seeds of Evil, £39.99, a dino-crunching game, considered a top multiplayer at the time, though now perhaps a bit dated. There's also a section on steering wheels, featuring the Logic 3 Top Drive Plus, £59.99, and the Thrustmaster Formula Race Pro, £49.99. The Top Drive Plus is said to offer excellent handling and rumble effects. The Formula Race Pro is designed to sit on your lap and has particularly good pedals. This page continues the Awesome Collection with more N64 game reviews and accessory spotlights. Turok Rage Wars, £39.99, described as a multiplayer fragging experience, it's praised for its arenas and weapons. Twine, £39.99, a first-person shooter similar to GoldenEye 007, noted for its gorgeous locations, but is a bit basic graphically and sometimes slow. WWF Attitude, £49.99, a wrestling game that captures the world of WWF, with a mountain of wrestlers and moves. WWF No Mercy, £49.99. More WWF. This one is full of superstars and options, delivering a multiplayer experience. There's also a spotlight on steering wheels. Shock, £239.99. A responsive wheel. Version 3 FX Racing Wheel, £59.99. Praised for its rumble effect. Race 64 Compact, £49.99. Featuring gear-changing paddles. The page also includes a Who's Who section about Diddy Kong, discussing his origin, debut in Donkey Kong Country, and his role in Diddy Kong Racing, and mentions his upcoming Game Boy Advance title, Diddy Kong Pilot, which uses tilt technology. It also mentions other Kong relatives, like Funky, Candy, Rambi, and Onguarde. This awesome collection page features game reviews and a sales chart. Zelda, Majora's Mask, N64, £49.99, and Ocarina of Time, N64, £49.99, both receive excellent reviews, scoring 96% and 97% respectively, lauded for their adventure and innovative gameplay. X vs. Sever, GBA £29.99, earns a 90% score, praised for successfully bringing the FPS genre to the handheld, with balanced stealth and shooting. An advertisement promotes Advance Wars on GBA. The top 10 sales chart is led by Pokémon Stadium 2, followed by Mario Kart, Mario Party 3, Tony Hawk's 2, and others including Majora's Mask. The page concludes with a comprehensive contacts list, providing phone numbers for numerous gaming companies like Nintendo, Capcom, and Activision. The next page is a blast from the past with a Logo Boy advert. For a small fee you could download music logos and ringtones for your phone, a novel concept for the time. It lists various genres like top tones, pop tones, dance, and R&B, along with their respective codes to dial in and download music. There are also music logos and film logos, along with favorites. It also provides a number to call from Ireland. And for journalism training, there is a Taste Life Get Paid advert. This page kicks off with official tips and a promise that every tip and cheat has been tested by Nintendo's experts. They only provide tips, hints, and cheats that actually work. The Hints, Tips and Cheats section lists games like Doom, ECKS vs. Sever, Star Wars Episode I, Battle for Naboo, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, Super Mario Advance, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, Mario Golf, Mario Kart Super Circuit and Wario Land 4. There's also a call for your tips, inviting readers to send in Nintendo questions for prizes. Your Scores asks if you're a gaming god and directs you to page 66. The main feature is Wario Land 4, touted as a GBA platforming classic. The writer claims it's a work of Nintendo genius. They highlight the fact that each level contains quintets that can be played in the sound room, and that this month's tips focus on Emerald Passage, with a promise of more CD locations in future issues. The page features screenshots of Wario Land 4 gameplay, with tips on finding hidden seeds in levels like Palm Tree Paradise, Wildflower Fields, Mystic Lake, and Monsoon Jungle. Each tip is accompanied by a screenshot, showing the specific location and action required to snag the CD. The next page continues the official tips section, starting with controller icons for the N64 and Game Boy Advance, showing button layouts for following codes. It then dives into cheats for ECKS vs. Sever, describing it as a super cool GBA blaster, and warning players that the missions are tough. It suggests using level passwords, obtainable by holding a copy of the magazine in front of a mirror. The page also includes cheats for Doom on the GBA, promising invincibility and radiation suits. It warns of monsters in every room but assures players that the cheats will help them survive. The writer claims Doom is still amazing fun to play, and that it is even better on the small Game Boy Advance screen. This page of Nintendo official tips kicks off with Nintendo Top 5 GBA Tips, suggesting that Harry Potter has dethroned Mario Kart as the top game. The page then gives tips for Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, briefly explaining the Flipendo and Transfiguration spells. Next up is Mario Kart Super Circuit, with tips for the Ghost Valley 1 and Rainbow Road shortcuts. Following that is a tip for Wario Land 4, advising players to listen carefully to the music in the Wario Hop mini-game to time jumps. The Mario Advance tip tells players how to warp to World 6. Finally, it ends with cheat codes for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, allowing players to unlock all levels and max out their money. On the right side of the page there is the Classic Corner, which features tips for Mario Golf on the Game Boy Color. The first tip is to use woods if you want to hit the ball far. The second tip is that iron clubs are great for hitting the ball high. The third tip is that putting spin on the ball can give your shots the extra edge they need. The fourth and final tip is that the most useful types of spin are top and back spin. The next page is a most requested section, which gives tips and tricks for Star Wars Battle for Naboo on the N64. The page highlights the game's difficulty and offers super fighting tactics. It includes screenshots, demonstrating formations, and evasive maneuvers. The text advises players to stay in formation, prepare for swarms, take evasive action against enemy aircraft, and target smaller packs of fighters when the enemy divides. On the right of the page is an advert for Cheats Unlimited, offering over 10,000 cheats and tips. It features a list of N64 and Game Boy Advance games with codes. Some of the games mentioned are Stimsport, Aero Fighters Assault, Mission Impossible, Perfect Dark, Star Wars Battle for Naboo, Harry Potter, Pokemon and Tony Hawk's 2. It also includes contact numbers for accessing these cheats, with different rates for callers aged 16 or over, and those under 16. This page is all about readers' tips and tricks. First up is Mario Kart Super Circuit for the Game Boy Advance, with tips from Harry Orlands of Liverpool on how to win races. This includes advice on using speed boosts and taking shortcuts on Rainbow Road. Then there's a tip for The Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask on the Nintendo 64, courtesy of Joshua Walsh from Leicester. This involves a sneaky lottery trick, using time travel to win rupees. Finally, there's another Mario Kart Super Circuit tip from Thomas Munro of Inverness, this time on how to use red shells to your advantage when leading a race. The next page answers readers' questions. First up, a reader named Kieran Wilson from Devon needs help with The Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask on the Nintendo 64, specifically getting the light arrows in the stone tower. The mag advises to beat the mini-boss, Garrow Master, and use the mirror shield. There are some screenshots and step-by-step instructions on how to use the mirror shield. Next, Vicky Wood from Lincolnshire is having trouble with The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, asking how to get to the boss in the Forest Temple. The mag shares that the trick involves turning the wall to position the archway, giving access to doors and switches. Screenshots of the room with the blocks are provided as a reference. Lastly, Nathan Naylor from Grimsby wants to find Mew in Pokemon Stadium. The magazine recommends completing Round 1 to unlock the Round 2 mode, then Mew can be rented in the Prime Cup. The page also has a write-in section, encouraging readers to send in their Nintendo tips for a chance to win prizes. Finally, there's a segment called New Ways to Play, featuring new ways to enjoy older games. This time it suggests a Super Mario Advance Power Attack for 4 players in Mario Classic, and a GoldenEye 007 The Fugitive scenario. This page showcases the Your Scores section, highlighting players who excelled in specific game challenges. The featured challenges are 1. ISSGBA. The goal is to achieve the biggest winning margin using any team against any opposition, at level 3 difficulty, in a 5-minute match. The tip is to pick a strong team and ruthlessly exploit the opposition. 2. Pokemon Stadium 2, 64. Players competed in the clear-cut minigame, aiming for the highest score. The advice is that perfect timing is essential to succeed in this tough Pokemon challenge. The page then lists the top players and their scores for each game. Pokemon Stadium 2, N64. Tim Wilson from Aberdeen leads with a score of 16, followed by Hannah Jones, Martin Piper and James Watnell, all with 15, and Stuart Francis with 14. Super Street Fighter 2, GBA. David Smith from Truro tops the chart with 572,100, followed by Mark Sanchez with 565,900, Peter Clark with 563,700, Dan Madison with 561,200, and Fraser Dunn with 558,400. The winners for each game get to take home official Nintendo 64 controller pads. The next page dives into the Mega Challenge based on Doom on the Game Boy Advance. It's an invitation for players to get their zombie blasting head on and compete for a spot in the Mega Challenge final. The challenge involves getting the fastest time on the final stage of Dis, on Hey Not Too Rough difficulty, defeating the Barons and Cacodemons, and getting past any nasty surprises. Only the top 4 finishers will be invited to Nom Towers for a deathmatch. Participants are reminded to include a phone number with their entry and keep Saturday, March 9, 2002 free. The closing date for entries is Friday, February 8, 2002. In case of a tie, the magazine will let their office dog pick the winner, obviously. The page also provides a helpful tip for killing the barons in the first room. Use the plasma rifle, and keep your distance. The next page gives us a guide to Wario Land 4. Wario's looking to make a quick buck in an ancient pyramid, and this guide is our ticket in. It covers treasure hunting tips, special abilities, jewel pieces, keys and bosses, plus where to find Wario in issues 110 and 112. There's a wee said, quote, Wario Land 4 has gone down a storm in Japan, and there's no reason to think that he won't have the same impact over here. The Wario Power section is all about the transformations, showing off Puffy Wario, Bouncy Wario, Fat Wario, Vampire Bat Wario, Snowball Wario, Zombie Wario, Frozen Wario, Flat Wario, Flaming Wario and Bubble Wario, each with a screenshot and a description of their abilities. This page continues the Wario Land 4 guide, zeroing in on finding the portal switch in Emerald Passage and Wildflower Fields. There are step-by-step instructions with screenshots on how to nab jewel pieces and keys in each area. It also gives tips on escaping Palm Tree Paradise and Wildflower Fields once the portal switch is hit, including using dash attacks and rolling through walls. This page continues the Wario Land 4 guide, now moving on to Mystic Lake and Monsoon Jungle. It gives tips on finding the portal switch, with screenshots guiding you through each area. It also explains how to escape both levels, including finding the keys and jewel pieces. Lastly, it gives some tips on how to defeat the boss Cractus. The next page carries on with our Wario Land 4 walkthrough, focusing on Ruby Passage. It's got the lowdown on the Curious Factory and the Toxic Landfill, with steps to find the portal switch. Plus, they've covered how to escape both of those delightfully named locations. This page delivers more Wario Land 4. Goodness, it's all about the 40 below fridge and pinball zone levels. There are guides on finding the portal switches and escaping those chilly and bouncy areas. Lastly, a quick strategy for taking down the Cuckoo Condor boss. Seems like Wario's got his work cut out for him. The next page continues the Wario Land 4 strategy guide, now diving into the Topaz Passage levels. This time it's Toy Block Tower, and the big board getting the walkthrough treatment, complete with tips on finding the portal switches and escaping each area. Plus, we see tips for finding keys and grabbing jewel pieces. This page dives into more Wario Land 4 strategies. We've got the lowdown on finding the portal switches and escaping from Doodle Woods and Domino Row. There are handy hints for snagging jewel pieces in those tricky levels, and then a quick guide on how to defeat the Erident boss. The next page continues with more Wario Land 4 tips, this time focusing on the Sapphire Passage levels. It gives step-by-step instructions on finding the portal switches and escaping Crescent Moon Village and Arabian Night, complete with screenshots and pointers for grabbing all those precious jewel pieces. This page jumps into the Wario Land 4, focusing on Fiery Cavern and Hotel Horror, guiding us on the quest to find those portal switches and escaping. The guide provides screenshots to help show the way to jewel pieces and some tips for those tricky spots. Finally, there's a quick guide on defeating Catbat, with tips on exploiting his weak spot to give you the win. The next page features more tips for Wario Land 4, this time focusing on the Golden Pyramid stage. It's a walkthrough for escaping the Golden Passage, and then a quick guide on how to defeat the Golden Diva. The guide breaks down each of her attacks with some tips and screenshots to show what to do. So, jump on heads, throw blue beetles and watch out for those eggs. This page is a letters page called Club Mario. It includes reader letters, questions and comments about various Nintendo games. Readers share their thoughts on the new Legend of Zelda look for GameCube, with opinions divided. One reader suggests Tekken Tag Tournament for Game Boy Advance or GameCube. There's talk about a rumor that the GameCube might not be released in America and Europe, which Rich assures is totally wrong. There are Mario's winner sections, in which some letters are awarded for their top quality. One letter discusses finding a picture of Grand Theft Auto 3 for Game Boy Advance, and another talks about the Nintendo 64 console belonging in a museum. The Bowser's Prison section asks readers to list 3 and 64 games they would take to Bowser's Prison, along with reasons why, and also to send in a photo with their entry. Krishan Patel lists Perfect Dark, Conker's Bad Fur Day, and Shadow Man. The next page is a blend of reader interaction and game-related content. Mario's Hotline features reader feedback, with folks sharing their excitement for the new Zelda GameCube adventure and the potential of the console. A reader even expresses hope for Sonic Advance on Game Boy Advance, requesting respect for the hedgehog. Mario's Winner segment showcases creative reader contributions, including a song adaptation about love for GameCube, and references to games like Luigi's Mansion and Donkey Kong. Mario's hit list poses questions to readers about the biggest upcoming Nintendo games, the quality of 2001 for Nintendo gamers, and the worst Nintendo gaming moment of the year. Game or Lame presents a reader's game idea, Jurassic Park 2, Snap, involving photographing dinosaurs, a concept Nom thinks sounds cool, like Pokémon Snap, with movie vehicles. The page also lists the magazine's staff members, advertising information, subscription details, and legal disclaimers. This page is a colorful promotion for Game Boy Advance consoles, and a cautionary tale about online chat rooms. The Blagfest advertises giveaways of Game Boy Advances, Robot Wars goodies and Monsters, Inc. merchandise. Get Net Smart section provides safety advice for using chat rooms, warning about potential dangers, and advising against sharing personal information or arranging meetings with strangers. It points users to thinkyouKnow.co.uk for more information. There's also a mention of Electronics Boutique, encouraging readers to visit their local store for the latest Game Boy Advance games, such as Advance Wars, WWF Road to WrestleMania, and ECKS vs. Sever. A triple advance competition offers readers a chance to win one of 3 Game Boy Advances by answering the question, who is the current Home Secretary, with the options Jack Straw, Tony Blair, or David Blunkett. The next page has a chance to win a Game Boy Advance and the Robot Wars Advanced Destruction game. 2 runners-up will get a copy of the game too. There's a Monsters, Inc. competition where you can win toys from the movie if you answer the question, what is the name of the human girl who stars in the Monsters, Inc. movie? Answer choices are, aha, surprise, and boo. The page includes pictures of Sully and Mike from Monsters, Inc., and a Game Boy Advance with the Robot Wars game. To enter, you have to write the answer on a postcard, and send it to Nintendo Official Magazine by February 14, 2002. This page covers Nintendo news with guaranteed correct information on GameCube and Game Boy Advance titles. For the GameCube, Cell Damage, Dark Summit, Disney's Tarzan, Untamed, ISS2, Resident Evil, Smashing Drive, and Soul Calibur 2 are mentioned. For the Game Boy Advance, Army Men, Operation Green, Broken Sword, Mortal Kombat Advance, Rogue Spear, and ZOE Fist of Mars are listed. There's a preview of ISS2, a GameCube exclusive football game developed by the same team behind International Superstar Soccer 64 on the N64. The game is set for an early 2002 release in Japan and the United States. It will feature 50 international teams with real player names, and promises a mix of pick-up-and-play controls. The graphics are so realistic that it's hard to believe you're playing a game, not watching the Premiership. This page features a preview of ISS2 for the GameCube, hailing it as possibly the best football video game ever. The graphics are touted as next generation, with gameplay similar to previous ISS titles. There are some screenshots of the game, showing the teams France and Spain in a match. Warrington Aris. The next page presents a preview of ZOE Fist of Mars for the Game Boy Advance. The game is described as a tactical RPG set on Mars, where players control giant robots called Levs. It's from the Zone of the Enders series that was popular on other consoles and now arriving on Nintendo's handheld. The preview showcases screenshots and character art, highlighting that the battles are turn-based, similar to Pokémon. The reviewer expresses excitement about battling huge robots on Mars, and advises readers to hold tight for more information in the next issue. This page is a preview of Rogue Spear for the Game Boy Advance, which is an action game from Ubisoft, set for release in March. The preview highlights the game's covert operations and strategy elements, mentioning that players can hire up to 4 operatives, each with different strengths and weaknesses in stealth, aim, health, and reflexes. There is a selection of kit, including frag grenades and a heartbeat sensor. The missions will span across the globe, from icy wastes to the pyramids of Egypt. The reviewer notes that the character sprites are small, but the strategy elements should keep players hooked. A final thought suggests the game will be fun with sharp graphics, well-thought-out missions, and awesome firepower. This page is an advertorial for Broken Sword, Shadow of the Templars on the Game Boy Advance. Graphics would have been astounding on a Super NES. This adventure game by BAM, Warrington set for release in March, promises an incredible story with tales of intrigue and villains to unmask. It's described as having unbeatable GBA graphics. The article mentions that the game developers Revolution weren't afraid to give the truth. The hero, George Stobart, an American abroad, witnesses a bomb explode at a cafe. He meets Nicole Collard, and together they try to solve the mystery. The game is a conversion of the PC title, revamped for the GBA, filled with cool puzzles. Players can position icons over items to let George interact with them. George's quest takes him to secret underground chambers, where all manner of dangers lurk, adding to the game's atmospheric feel. The next page features Broken Sword on the Game Boy Advance, showcasing its gameplay and storyline. It emphasizes the importance of interacting with every character to discover clues, and highlights the impressive graphics for a handheld game. The article also mentions that the adventure is primarily set in Paris, but players will explore other cities and countries. There are said to be many interesting people to talk to, each with their own story. The game's lighting effects are praised for enhancing the appearance of indoor and outdoor locations. The streets of Paris may seem peaceful, but a strange and unnerving mystery is about to unfold, more like a classic mystery novel than a normal video game. George is described as a foolhardy adventurer who often finds himself in dangerous places, such as ancient underground tunnels. Even the back alleys of Paris could hold vital clues. Players are advised to examine everything carefully to find essential items, maps, and clues. Talking to people is crucial, but trust should be given cautiously. Besides exploration, there are also action sequences designed to test reflexes. The magazine concludes that Broken Sword is an excellent choice for a GBA conversion and could be an absolute cracker. This page kicks things off with a spotlight on Mortal Kombat Advance for the Game Boy Advance, declaring the controversy over video game violence is set to start all over again, promising plenty of gore, guts, and splatter. The graphics are apparently good enough to give the GBA Tekken a run for its money, resembling the Super NES edition, and even the bosses are playable. All your favorite characters are included, except Shiva, a multi-limbed exception, so that means you get to relive all of those classic fighting moments again. There's mention of fatalities and friendships. Sub-Zero's friendship move is included. The article also mentions Smoke makes an appearance. Then there's Army Men, Operation Green, with Sarge and his pint-sized heroes returning to save the plastic world from the Tan Army, promising 17 levels of hardcore action and improved AA. Operation Warrington End's return. The next page dives into Soul Calibur 2 for the GameCube, boasting super storylines, new characters, and wicked weapons. Namco's beat-em-up promises stunning visuals thanks to the GameCube's processing power and a frantic two-player option. The story is set in the 16th century, involving a magical blade and an evil spawn. The Fast News section includes updates on Yabba Dabba Doo, a Flintstones racing game for the GameCube based on Viva Rock Vegas, and confirmation of 007 Agent Under Fire coming to the GameCube. There's also a quirky announcement about Nintendo teaming up with a flower manufacturer for an exclusive Pikmin plant. Additionally, there are snippets about playing Game Boy Advance on your TV using an adapter, and King of Fighters coming to Game Boy Advance. The team-based brawler will again feature legendary fighters Kyo and Iori with hidden characters. The magazine thinks that beat-em-up fans will enjoy Soul Calibur 2, which is something special, and that the mixture of weapons and combination attacks sets this game apart from its rivals. Orange. This page features a preview of the GameCube remake of Resident Evil. The article highlights brand new screens, more zombie action, stunning graphics, and a terrifying storyline. It confirms that all Resident Evil games will be exclusive to GameCube, and that this release is a remake of the original PlayStation game, but with updated puzzles, improved graphics, and better controls. The backgrounds are pre-rendered, creating detailed and realistic environments. The real-time character graphics are equally stunning, and the game is slated for a March release in Japan, but a UK date is yet to be announced. A screenshot shows a hunter, and a comment mentions the developer's attention to lighting effects, shadows, and reflections. Another screenshot showcases the realistic blasts from weapons, though bullets are hard to find in the game. The next page is another look at the GameCube remake of Resident Evil. They're really pushing the graphical prowess here, saying it's hard to believe the screenshots are from a video game and not a Hollywood horror flick. Zombies are apparently even more gruesome than before, and both characters have more moves, which should make for a more interesting playthrough. Jill Valentine's face and the weapon effects get special mention for their realism. Also, Don't waste ink ribbons when saving, they're limited. Jill's got lockpicking skills, unlike Chris Redfield, but can't carry as much ammo, and zombies just keep on coming. The reviewer ends with high praise for the graphics and lighting, predicting the game is going to be a winner. This page features 2 GameCube titles, Dark Summit and Smashing Drive. Dark Summit sounds like it's trying to inject some story into the snowboarding genre. You play as Naya, trying to reopen a mountain. The graphics are promising, and there's a split-screen multiplayer mode hinted at, plus over 40 missions. They seem optimistic that it'll be a standout snowboarding game. Then there's Smashing Drive, which the magazine compares to Crazy Taxi and Simpsons Road Rage. The goal is to deliver passengers in a futuristic city using weaponized vehicles. They mention battering rams, rockets and buzzsaws. Sounds chaotic. The action's supposed to be fast-paced with a good soundtrack, and they think that it's interesting to see how it compares to Crazy Taxi. The next page kicks off with Disney's Tarzan Untamed for the GameCube, promising a laugh riot with its 3D platforming and extreme sports elements like surfing and vine swinging. You're tasked with freeing jungle creatures captured by the evil hunter Oswald Gardner. They reckon it will coincide with the GameCube's UK launch. Then it's on to Cell Damage, also for the GameCube. It's a stylish toon-style battle racer in the vein of a toon-shaded Legend of Zelda. You're pitted against other drivers in a last-man-standing smashathon with over 30 weapons, from black holes to oversized mallets. There are 10 levels across 4 worlds and 3 gameplay modes: Smash Attack, Battle Race, and Flag Rally, plus a 2-player mode. The magazine thinks Cell Damage looks stunning and hopes to have more info next month. This page features the mobile monitor for the GameCube, a portable screen attachment by Interact. It claims to offer surprisingly good portable graphics. Despite not being as good as a decent home TV, it's still impressive with good clarity and sharp colors. The unit clips onto the back of a GameCube and folds down when not in use, and can also be used for DVD players and VCRs. There is also a reader offer for a Spectra Video Link cable and carry case for the Game Boy Color for £3.99, significantly cheaper than the usual £9.99. The next page features a full-page advert for Nintendo Official Magazine. Advertising and production inquiries are listed with contact details for Julie Dupree and Saul Clark. Circulation and readership figures are also provided for Jan-June 2000. The second half of the page is ads for Dial a Prize, Win Consoles and Games, Video Game Company, Games and Accessories Online, King Cat, Dragon Ball Z, and Sailor Moon merchandise. This page is the front cover of Nintendo Official Magazine and promises the biggest and best-selling issue with coverage of next month. It boasts to be the biggest, best, first, most games and official. There is a tag that says, "Go buy it the 11th of February. It promises 6 things that they always keep, which are reading about every Nintendo game and product here first, having the most shots of new games, easy to understand and use, all tips, moves and cheats work and help you get more from games, trustworthy writers, never needing to buy any other magazines." The cover also has a preview for Sonic Adventure 2 Battle on a Nintendo console that has amazing levels and top battles. There are updates for Eternal Darkness with brand new terrifying screenshots, and Animal Forest Plus, which is cute adventuring on the GameCube. Reviews include Mortal Kombat, which is a gory fighter that packs a punch on GBA, and Cruis'n Velocity, which is the classic series going portable. The page ends with Plus, Game Guide's Best Cheats. The next page is the front cover, showing Mario from Super Mario World, Super Mario Advance 2. The issue also mentions classic platforming, massive worlds, top secrets, and new multiplayer games. There's also a preview of Game Boy Color with some football on the screen, and a mention of Mega Challenge from Mario Kart, tips for submitting your own game hints, and the promise of official GBA and N64 tips. Finally, it mentions GameCube news and Club Mario. This page features WWF wrestler Booker T in all his glory. It's a full-page spread with a glossy shot of him posing, along with a fact file giving his stats like height, weight, and finishing move Harlem Sidekick, and a Did You Know section with some trivia, like his real name is Booker Huffman, and he debuted in WWF at the 2001 King of the Ring tournament. The next page is a right proper advert. In it, it's for UKGames.com, flogging Game Boy Advance and Nintendo 64 gear. Sonic Advance, Mario Kart, Harry Potter, and Grand Theft Auto 3 are all featured. They've got Game Boy Advances, starter packs, and even a big deal bundle. Plus, Sony 64 games like Banjo-Kazooie, GoldenEye and Zelda are advertised. They're even chucking in free gifts if you spend enough. Blimey, what a bargain. This page is a full-page advert for LEGO Racers, Drone Racers. It features a close-up of a LEGO car wheel and the slogan "Wanted," along with the website address www.lego.com/racers.